Hi, I'm Ian.
I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Josh.
And we're the Fake Boys.
Plus one.
Woo, plus
Special
one.
guest.
Special guest, Joshua Thorne. Longtime
Welcome.
friend. Welcome to the cast.
Hi.
It's your birthday
Wow.
today.
So, Josh,
not.
do you want to tell us what we're talking about today?
Did we
introduce
decide?
yourself?
we
Introduce yourself
decided.
a little bit,
You
Josh.
introduce yourself.
What do you
Tell,
want me-
tell,
what-
tell the
what do you
people
want
who
to
you
know?
are.
Like whatever you want
What
to
do you
say
like?
to
What are you
the
into?
viewers out there.
I've only done one podcast before, so I'm just so excited to be here. And I am a recent father. It's going quick. Almost a 2-year-old now.
Wow.
20-month-old daughter, and an all-around creative. And I am excited to delve into some talk of AI.
I think that's what we decided on today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an illustrator, so I've been using a lot of the illustration AI stuff. Well, not a lot, just a couple of the programs, but I've been using it for a couple of years now, and am wholly accepting of it. But I've got a much different kind of idea around art than a lot of artists do, and even than I did myself, which was kind of more in line with how I feel like a lot of artists feel before. But I've kind of changed pace, and I'm really into it. And I just think that the way the AI is, that there's no stopping it.
Well,
Kind of
wait.
Pandora's box.
Are you a professional illustrator?
Technically.
Because I had to ask you, what does it feel like to accept that you might lose your job?
That's what is interesting about this topic, because as someone who works in the digital art space, is I think there's going to be a separation between artists that integrate with it and use the tools and the ones who don't.
Yeah.
Because the ones who don't, who are trying to do everything bespoke and by hand and try to like draw everything from scratch, I think there will always be the same way that books are still around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people will always still have nostalgia or having like, oh, a human painted this.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, if I can pump out something that is exactly what's in my head and print it digitally and make it look exactly as if it was, airbrushed or whatever,
Your production capacity is
it
just
just goes through the
insane.
roof.
Part
Yeah.
of me like doesn't understand AI, but from an aesthetic standpoint, isn't it kind of like, I don't know what your guys' perception is, you can tell it's digital in
Right
a different
now.
way that's not. So like, to me, it's almost the idea maybe approaching it from, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to take my job or it's going to replace art. But I'm like, I can look at, some cool design through that was created through AI as like an aesthetic thing. It's like a medium, like, do you use acrylics or do you use oil?
Yeah, the creativity is still
Like-
channeled through the software that you're using.
Well, and then my other question was like, I don't know, right? There's like this big brain AI, but it's all based off of the input of the internet, right? And what's humans have created. So I wonder if there's a way to create like a small sandbox where you can, as an artist, input whatever you specifically want to kind of start shifting the AI, like almost like mini algorithms within the AI,
Oh, 100%.
so that you can be more, I'm saying sovereign in your art as an artist. So it's like you're really creating it. Because right now I feel like a lot of people's fear is that we're creating something bigger than us, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's like, is it so big that it's gonna consume us, or is it,
Probably.
I mean, that's sort of the crux point that we're at right now as a society coming into that burgeoning technology. We have choices to make.
So like, of course it's interesting because there's like the scientific versus like people that are and purely materialistic kind of understanding. Because to me, AI makes me contemplate what is really to be human and what is a human brain. I mean, in a sense, we talk about how limited we are as humans, but the computational ability of our organic brains and then mind you, talking about consciousness and all that other stuff is vastly superior in some ways than a binary computer ever. Well, maybe it's not binary anymore, but they have quantum computers. But like, a computer will ever be. So it's like we can create an AI that can be really smart, but will it really ever have discernment in a way that us humans have?
Well, the question I think is around like when you make a decision, is it something that is calculated? And if it's calculated and it was determined by a previous factors that led you to make a decision, like if I know your upbringing and I know how you were raised and I know your trends, this is why big data and people acquiring data and selling you stuff, that's why your data is so valuable to them, because they literally, by understanding those metrics, know that every single year on around May 15th, you buy this product. And so that they know that they'll be able to sell that to you because there's a trend of you doing that. And then you can also take that from just not even purchasing power, but just making decisions around who you're voting for, around all these different factors about what you think makes you an individual. And I think
that's where it's kind of the dangers of AI, because we talk about the bar. It's because to me, I'm like, being a human means so much more than that, right? Like when you're talking about making decisions, there's emotional, which emotions necessarily don't create better decisions.
But that's all from stimulus. Like you present it with
you're
stimulus,
you're
respond a certain
becoming
way.
reductionist when you're explaining, or the like that kind of mindset to me is very reductionist. It's everything's pure reason and logic.
No, it's not. I'm just saying that emotion is even a stimulus. Like when somebody tells me something and it makes me sad.
But digital beings, right, ever have actual emotion? I don't believe so.
The scary thing is that there's enough examples of it where they are exhibiting it as if they are. They're like showing like quote unquote empathy in situations.
Yeah, but I think if we could use it to like elevate ourselves and understand that we're actually more, because otherwise it's like it could trick us. But if you really are like an empowered individual, I feel like you're going to be able to tell
Chris,
the difference between fake. It's like, what is it?
Jump on in there, Josh. If you have something to say.
The people that kill people,
murderers.
No, but like psychopaths, right? They emulate emotion, but they don't actually have it.
You mean that they don't have true empathy?
Yeah. So it's kind of like
it's emulated. It's not genuine.
And we don't want that. We don't want a whole world based off of.
Well, that's the fear. That's the fear around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially the fear, because they think that like the riddle of like if you, so like they have AI already where ChatGPT, I think it was, or whatever the competing
open
thing to ChatGPT is, where you just ask questions and it's spitting out verbal responses, writing responses, asking, make me a business plan where I can utilize $1,000 and turn it into this.
Right.
How would you go about it? And then this thing that's fed information from internet writings all over the place. I'm not sure, but like just giant sweeps of data,
right?
Human generated data and all this stuff comes up and spits out a thing instantly of like a business plan that is practical.
Right.
So if you ask this robot that's gathering all this data and it comes up with some plan, like you could ask it really dangerous things that have really significant consequences that have no intention of humanity's safety involved. Like, how can I turn $1,000 into like the next nuclear war by manipulating people? And it's like, well, just use this strategy. And it's like anyone with an ill intention, and there's plenty of bad and good actors in the world, can use this technology that's so powerful to kind of scrape and correlate all of the internet's power, all of human knowledge, and then deliver them a writing and the voicing of someone else. The thing that's more prevalent and the scariest thing is that we've already entered the age of like, you just can't trust your eyes about anything. Like, as hard as it was to already delineate the truth,
like deep fakes and such.
Well, like, think about how hard it is to delineate the truth in a social media environment when you see an article and you see a headline and it immediately triggers something and you were like, what? Like, full of fear. Like the other day I saw like Russian submarine off the coast of Florida, like 66 miles out, and I immediately like had this like cortisol response, and I was like, oh god, but I didn't even read it. I just like glanced at that, and then I thought about it for hours and like didn't investigate it, partly for this reason, because I don't know what to trust,
right?
And to dive into it, if I'm gonna really like integrate something into my psyche and like really digest it and dissect it, I have to really make sure I know where it came from, because it was already hard with the way that people want to manipulate your emotional state through all this stuff, like news outlets and media outlets are all doing this for clicks, all that narrative and
Right.
stuff. But now you have the ability to make videos, writings, images that
There's even
aren't real at all.
Right.
fake Instagram accounts I've seen of, typical like pretty woman taking selfies.
Yep.
But if you look closely to it looks almost like a real person, but if
Right.
you look really closely, you can tell there's something like fake about it. But I was like, wow, they're creating accounts posing as real people to gain clicks for whether it's to get people to eventually get scammed or just to sell advertisements. Who knows?
Something I noticed, you guys have been circling around distinguishing AI from humanity and kind of circumambulating around emotion as a deciding factor. I think that's a piece, but I think a big one is AI is truly dangerous when it's separated from a human-centric field of values. So if AI takes all the logical reasoning capacity of human beings and then goes quantum with it, right? It supersedes us. It transcends the human capacity for logic. But what it can't transcend, from where I'm standing anyway, I'm open to the possibility of it transcending us, but human beings have a unique capacity to operate and live from a field of values, whether that's moral or just virtue, a sense of virtue.
Couldn't like from what Ian was saying, couldn't it, if it's faking
emulate-
emotion, it could emulate
The genesis
values.
the genesis is the interesting thing, because I think the piece that you're talking about and the piece that you were also bringing in is like when you put in like, hey, write me a business plan with $1,000 and I want to make X amount of dollars in this amount of time, right? It's going to scour so instantaneously, which would take me months of research, right? I would get that information back, but the source of where they're pulling that information from and how they're building the algorithm, especially for like robotics and things that they're doing they're using AI to do more complex tasks where they actually have to think about what's happening. It can't like picking up objects. The only reason why people work in Amazon warehouses right now is because they can't have a robot change its hand position size to pick up different size materials. And when they have that, those line workers are out the door, because then they can work 24/7, no rights, no pay, none of that. And it's only because you have the physical capability with your eyes to say this is a tricycle and this is a tablet. Like that's the difference right now. But when you feed it certain information where it's pulling it from, sourcing that, you could imbue it with that as its algorithmic function to say, okay, machine that we're building to be artificially intelligent, have these values, and then operate from these values as if that is your.
It's one of my favorite memes about AI in general is just how people were like, everyone was like, learn to code because the AI is coming and there's going to be no room for all these blue collar manual labor jobs. And it's like, and then everyone's just going to be unemployed and working on art and music. And it's like, oh, the exact opposite happened. Of course.
Yeah.
The robots are making all the music and the art.
I love that.
But you keep pulling wire.
I love that meme
Get
where
that sheetrock up
it was
there.
just like,
fuck that.
Yeah.
it's like, why is AI making
Yeah.
music and art and I'm still washing dishes
can
and
work
laundry?
more,
Yeah,
motherfucker.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like it should be the exact
to your
opposite.
point, you were saying like, oh, it can be used for menial tasks, but
It can't though. There's a very interesting thing.
Well, but it leads to that question that all doomsday mindsets have come to before we even were close to this technology, like Terminator, is like self-awareness and the ability to create new ideas, because all of it's based off of, it can synthesize maybe ideas based off of what's already been done, which for the most part, most people don't have, I would say, have like original thoughts really. But
I'd agree
there
with that.
is an ability, from my understanding, that humans are able to pull thoughts from a higher frequency realm that it's like from the void. They're able to create. That to me is like magic. So
Well, it's
humans
almost
have the
like-
ability to do magic in a way that this AI, now if the AI were to become self-aware, we don't know yet.
What would it produce? That's the interesting question, because artists, the thing that I've always really loved about artists, the ones who do it purely, is they have a fingerprint on their style or like their voice or their way of doing it. There's a lot of visual artist examples of that, like Banksy or Pollock, right? Like no one said, hey, you know, it'd be a really cool idea. Just do these little drips and everything like that. He was compelled to do that as his art style.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who have a very iconic way of doing their thing that when you see it, you go, oh, that's that person, because that's their type of expression that's so genuine to them. That's how they chose to produce art.
Yeah.
You can hear it musically too. Like you hear a song come on, you're like, oh, that's this particular artist, like immediately, because it has that je ne sais quoi, that like energy to it.
Absolutely.
And so what's interesting to me about AI is like the replication of it is absolutely teddy bonkers. Like you can prompt AI to say, draw an episode of The Simpsons as if it was done in the style of a Miyazaki film, and it will produce that shit.
It's
I've
awesome.
seen so
Immediately,
and I've seen like Harry Potter done in the size of a Japanese anime. I've seen so many different versions of how they've like flipped it back and forth.
There's one as like an Italian like movie game like drama, and it's just like, oh, Harry. Really good. It looks kind of like mafia movie.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I love that. And so like for those types of production, it's awesome. But the thing that's interesting as it sits right now, it still needs someone to generate the prompt. It still needs the artist. And this is why for myself as an artist, I feel like the delineation right now is going to be, are you going to be using these tools in your work, in your creativity right now, or aren't you? If you're going to be purely doing it manually, and you're just going to get outpaced. It's kind of like what's the guy who's John Henry, I think it was, laying down a railroad.
Oh, yeah.
And like, there's like the steam engine's coming, bro. Like, you're not going to be able to do this faster than a steam engine. He's like, try me, you know, like, and he got really far, but it's like at a certain point, mechanization will outpace human capacity.
But what's your sense for you guys around like the desire? For example, you're saying you could create a Harry Potter film in the style of this, but what's your sense around like the desire to actually consume content that's purely AI? Like, how satisfying is it for you, right? Like, we have VFX that's amazing, and yet we still have human actors, right? Like to
Currently,
like, what's your sense on that and why?
I think the way that I always think about it is that I think there's a inherent premium with anybody who's mastering a craft of any kind. If you're, you know, there's electronic music and it will make you dance harder than any music because it's like mathematically designed to be like, here comes the drop, and it just like triggers something. It's so, but it's all, you know, computer generated, whatever. Synthesizer makes like the craziest sound you've ever heard, but it's not like a human produced sound. It's not coming out of a woodbox instrument. But then you hear, you know, a world renowned violinist or pianist play a piece of music and bare their soul, and you're hearing those ivory strokes, and that will never not be in demand. That will always have a premium. Hip hop's here. It's cutting up songs. It's making 50 different iterations. It's like literally AI before AI with music, like pulling all these different samples, and it's putting your voice over it. Yeah, sampling, and then, but that doesn't disregard the piece of music that was made initially. So that's kind of where I've come at to kind of reconcile my idea with it. But I've realized that I, as an artist, am more of a novelty artist. I think I'm more of a writer in my heart than because whenever I would paint stuff, it was just trying to like land on concepts and get them out of my head and just in front of me. And this is just like absolutely a dream for someone with that temperament, because I think of something and I can immediately have it. And then I have a Photoshop background too, so I can fix it and manipulate it and mix it with other things and add in art that I've developed like craft before. And
the fact that you can resample your own art too. You were showing me that on Midjourney. That's insane.
One of my favorite things about it.
Can you explain Midjourney a little bit? I don't. I've never seen it or no.
Get him, Josh.
I mean, I've seen like maybe images created with it. But...
Yeah. Midjourney is like one of the cutting edge, one of the premier AI image generating softwares where you can reference any kind of art style. It'll generate realistic images or illustration type images. There's still a lot of artifacts in it, so like a lot of like 6-fingered hands popping out of weird eyes.
Yeah.
When I first,
almost like a DMT trip.
Yeah. Well, I had a question that I wanted to bring up if we were going to talk about this too, is what everyone's first experience with being exposed to AI, or like kind of the first thing that made you go like, oh, like this is here.
Chat GPT for sure.
Was it?
Mhm.
It because they had it come out as like a beta. I can't remember which version it was,
Mhm.
like not 4.3 or whatever.
What was the context of you checking out Chat GPT?
I think it was something that I saw on like Facebook or whatever, and it was talking about like ask this anything, to like produce any of these types of things or have a conversation with basically an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I was just curious, because there's the Turing test. Familiar with the Turing test? Alan Turing.
That's the one where you look at images and say what it is.
No, so Alan Turing,
Rorschach.
yeah. Alan
Turing
Turing is coined as being the grandfather, I believe, of modern computing.
Oh
and,
yeah,
Sure.
And they had the
now that rings a bell. Yeah,
they have the movie The Imitation Game with what's his
Great
face?
movie.
Benedict
Excellent.
Cumberbatch.
Poor guy got castrated though for being gay.
100% spoilers.
Based on history.
Yeah, it is based on history.
You're like-
But so he invented basically what we now use on all of our computers and laptops and understanding of how to process these types of things. Anyway, but he created a test that was designed to be able to check or say whether or not something was a computer or not. So that's the crazy thing with the movie Ex Machina. Have you seen?
Great film. Best.
Excellent.
Best
I mean, we'll
movie
go
about
in-
AI.
Yeah,
Is that the
we'll
one
go
with
into
the-
that. We'll talk
The
about it.
guy is like staying at a place and
It's
there's a-
homeboy who played Poe from Star Wars.
Boyega.
Duke Leto
Oh,
from
no.
Dune.
Yeah, Duke
Oscar
Leto
Isaac.
from Dune.
Oscar
I asked,
Isaac.
yeah, thank
Andrew
you.
Boyega. No, that's not Poe.
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar
No.
Isaac.
I'm pretty
And
sure I saw it.
And
And-
Hux.
Great movie.
and what's
There's also one called Artificial Intelligence.
What's the other guy?
It's really
Brendan
good.
Gleeson.
Brandon
the one that
Gleeson,
came out
yeah.
a while ago,
Or
right?
it might be
Chris?
Brandon Gleeson?
Brendan
Donald.
Gleeson is his dad,
Yeah.
and his name is Domhnall.
No.
Domhnall.
I thought it was Donald Gleason.
What is that name?
I think it's
Hmm.
pronounced like Donald.
Is
Anyway,
that the guy that
Donald.
goes? Is that the guy that goes like a trip to this house?
yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
because I
yes,
was like,
yes.
maybe it's artificial intelligence. I'm thinking of This-
Absolutely. So, but the basis of that movie is the Turing test, and so it's this multi-billionaire guy who this guy wins a lottery to come to his house to spend a weekend with him, and he's a coder at his company.
Well,
And
no, he's the. Oh yeah. Sorry.
so it's like you put in your name to win a lottery to go like spend time with this guy to like pick his brain and hang out.
And
And
he's
so-
the CEO of the largest social network or search engine.
Search
Yeah.
engine. It's like the head of Google or whatever, their version of Google, in that particular world. And he invites him over to have this kind of secret agenda to have him basically go through a Turing test. He brings him over to have a conversation with this entity and to see whether or not she or it passes for real.
But it really fucks with the guy in the movie, if I remember correctly.
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
Dude,
Well, he
that
like
movie-
catches feelings for this being.
Mhm.
As did I.
Oh, actually, that
Yeah.
makes me think of. Did you see? Well, I've seen both, but Blade Runner 2049. He he has like a digital girlfriend. It's like a hologram girlfriend kind of thing. He like comes home
Same-
and it's like
yeah.
Ana de Armas. Just, like,
Yes.
protected. That's wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but like the idea of the Turing test is, can you differentiate when presented with information with interface with something? Can you tell whether or not it's a person or not? And so for Chat GPT, which is coming back to my answer to this first question, about when my first example of my experience with AI is I was curious to that extent. If I could hold a conversation, where would it break?
Like when you ran into like that, was it like an ad?
I don't know if it was an ad or if it was somebody sharing, like, bro, have you checked
Yeah,
this shit out
somebody
yet?
sent it to you. Like
Yeah.
what enticed you to check it out?
I think it was that aspect of it, of just like how real is this? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I wanted to know like how the extent that you could push that edge.
Do you remember
of-
like reading it and like it clicking in your head, like knowing like what it was saying it was about, and you're like, oh, I want to see if this is real. Was it that kind of thing?
I don't know. I think for me it was just I was interested in recognizing whether or not this platform was able to have that. Like oftentimes when you're talking to like a chat bot on support or whatever, it's
Mhm.
the most flimsy
It's the
ever.
worst.
It's the worst because it will produce the most unhuman thing ever, or just
I know
you
this
know
ain't
you can-
Jamaica.
Looking at you,
Yeah.
Temu
Do you know
ass.
you can schedule an appointment on our website?
exactly. Here's some resources I found. It's like the answers that Siri gives you when you've
Yeah.
asked like 12 times, and you're just like, you can open your iPhone.
That
Yes.
AI is like the if they say no, say this.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
And
Which
leads
is
you
just
through like a
if
web.
this then that kind of
If
conditions.
This is more-
if they mention their lawyer, pick up the
Escalate.
phone.
Yeah.
So AI is more vector, I guess, right? Because like people talk about AI. I'm not a coder. I don't really know, but what like, do you guys have any idea of like, right? Because you're talking about you program it to do certain things, whereas this is like, what is it? Procedural almost. I'm thinking of. Did you guys ever play that game, No Man's Sky?
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
So it's like they didn't have to design thousands and millions of planets and draw them out. They just basically put, if this is like this, then these are all the combinations, and then it's like randomly generated. So you're able to have this ridiculously huge exploring like the galaxy and stuff.
Right. And that's kind of where we're at with it. I think that there is a misnomer around what AI is right now, because it's more along those lines.
It's not.
It's not purely generative of its own.
All right,
Yeah,
so
it's because to your question, like people, I don't treat it like or I'm not afraid of it right now because it's not actually self-aware.
Yeah.
Like the first time I was, and that's why I don't have like a strong opinion about it. People are like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my job with this and that." I think it's one of those things that we're gonna see what happens because there's all sorts of interest happening at once. Everyone's using it, and like my first experience was when I was visiting my friend in Spain, and like he's on his phone doing Chat GPT, and we're making like lyrics about a cat and a railroad or something, you know, and it just was funny and it was fun. So to me, I'm using it like when I was a kid, you know, you're on the internet and you're like, this is funny, this is silly, you know, because I'm like, I don't really know how to use it.
how
to,
did
like,
you come across it? Was your friend using it? And he was like, let's jump on
like
here.
all things, I kind of just know about things through Reddit, and then it
Oh, okay,
leads
Reddit.
out.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, Reddit is probably a lot of people's
Yeah, for
introduction.
sure.
Reddit's kind of at the forefront of like
It's the homepage
social
to the internet.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
And
Slogans,
it's
baby.
gotten a lot shittier, but I still use it. And it gives me a lot of awareness about like what's going on
Sure.
kind of in the world without it being like,
Did
more
you
of a
get any of that
campaign.
GameStop money?
Bro, I
no.
wish. I wish
Bro,
I was on that tip.
my-
There's so many things
my
that I wish.
Diamond hands.
Yeah. My smart I was gonna say my smart ass cousin, but that makes him sound like he's a prick. He's
Smart ass
soup.
SOB.
he's a smart ass kid. No, he's so smart, right?
He's an ape.
He was talking about this. He's like, yeah, I'm getting in this thing, and he tried to convince me to like set up a Robinhood account. I'm like, that's so crazy. I don't even know what you're talking about. That doesn't sound real. And then like,
Is he multimillionaire now?
no, he
Oh,
no.
that'd
he
be
put
a
in
great
like
story.
$4 and then made it like $400.
Nice.
in like an
No, but
afternoon.
I
And
remember
like,
I woke up.
I started trying to download the app.
Yeah.
Started trying to get
Yeah.
it, and then they're like,
It
"No, we're
was over.
shutting it down.
Bubble.
Too
No, we're
late.
shutting
Too
it down."
Yeah, I remember the day that happened. It was like around COVID, and so I was getting into stocks just for fun and using that free money to gamble. And
You just said that
Thanks,
on
Papa Biden.
a microphone.
it was the Trump bucks or the Biden bucks. I don't remember.
I don't know which
Wonder
administration
what
they
statute of
put in.
limitations is on
both
that.
gave
Now
you
it's
money.
recorded on the internet. Tag that.
Man, yeah, just like you guys, I was first exposed to it with Chat GPT, but when I first got that, that first beta round of testing kind of exposure, I was like, oh, cool, kids are writing college essays. My other friend who's more business and computer minded was writing business plans and coding for websites. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I don't really feel my own access point to it yet, but then Midjourney and DALL-E came out, those two art making softwares, and where you do need a little bit of creativity to even put in a good prompt that generates decent artwork that's at least visually intriguing. And once I'm always looking for art inspiration for my own work, and the game definitely changed when I started looking at Midjourney, because you're looking at artwork that is so detailed, so well done, because it's based on human art. It iterates from existing imagery and what's possible with a digital paintbrush, so to speak. And it just totally blew my mind open and what's possible. And before Josh's modesty kicks in, his digital illustration, no matter what kind of AI is involved or not, is amazing. And I think we should
So
show
do you
some.
claim any originality to the degree of like
Yes.
like, do you think you could sell
Yes.
art of Midjourney
Legally, you
100%.
can.
based
Yeah.
off of that you put in the prompt? Because
You don't even need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Midjourney. I don't know if it's.
I'm just saying, like, from
No, I
like
hear your question.
moralistic
Oh yeah.
slash,
Well,
like, do you feel like confident in, because it's fun and you're creating it, but I guess to the point of fear of art is like, who's gonna claim stake to the creation of the prompt?
So the interesting argument I think that is tied into this, like what the query that you're putting out, is a lot of artists are terrified because basically what's happening is the internet is they're sourcing their art that's put up online, and that's being used as sample art for these generations. And so it's noticeable, and people have seen their watermark, they've seen their signature on like AI generated stuff. So it's using their art to generate something. So another piece of art
It's
that
just a
somebody then
piece.
sells. So, but they didn't get any money from that, from like the sale of that and or the usage of it. Nor did they click a box that says you can use my art for your usage. And it comes into a whole privacy concern too about what is being able to be used for that content.
Well, like, as a musician with sampling, music that's on the radio has to be cleared generally, like 99% of the time it is. But and then you got your SoundCloud and your mixtapes where it's like, you know, I like, if I make a beat and I put it out online, I'm not paying Kanye West for sampling his music, you know.
Right, but at the same, well, that's also like from like a hip hop perspective, like sampling's always been there. But there's an origination aspect of how you've chosen to put these things together in the tableau and this array of what you're using to put out there. The interesting thing with AI and the prompts that you're doing, I use a lot of like stock imagery too. Just I'm gonna go on Adobe stock
that
and grab
industry's done.
I mean, that industry is completely done. But when I've looked at like Adobe stock, or I've looked at these things because I have subscriptions to all these things, because sometimes it's easier to find that exact thing than it is to even prompt it. Right now, it is at least. And they'll say in like the upper right hand corner that it was AI generated. So like the people who are selling their art, there's like a delineation where they're putting like a tag on it that says this wasn't somebody who created this, that AI generated. It was 100% AI generated. It wasn't even a portion of it was created by a person.
I fully understand why people would have moral objections to AI for all those reasons that you stated, where, you know, it's scraping reference from their specific imagery, digital images, you know, however they ended up there, they are scraping that digital signature of the image and making a new thing. That the thing about it is, though, is that when they generate it, and even if it has the watermark on it, it's wholly new pixel for pixel of an image. It's not the image, so it's not technically like a straight out
infringement
on that original art. So they have that loophole. And the thing about it that's wild is that Midjourney is uncopyrightable. So every image that was generated on there
just can't be regulated
is
or
free use.
Really?
Yeah.
But I guess then the other question around, like, from a human world perspective is, at the end of the day, these are created, you know, these AIs that we're working with are all different, and they're owned by a company, and it's only sustained for as long as the company has investors, right?
Oh, they have investors, all right. Plus my $9 a month every
But
single
then, well, what's interesting though is, like, well, wouldn't you eventually, through capitalism, get a bunch of competition? And then you have a million different AIs happening, and they're all like different levels. But what happens
finding
often?
it right now.
Yeah.
Microsoft at their last conference said that they will not be moving forward without implementing AI into every single product.
Wow.
I haven't looked into
Doesn't
Copilot.
surprise
Have you
me.
looked into Copilot? I haven't looked
Is
at
it
Microsoft's.
Google's thing?
No, it's Microsoft's.
That's Microsoft.
Microsoft's
Oh yeah, that
Copilot.
must be.
Elon,
it's like
Google's
built
one-
into
Elon
the
Musk
desktop.
just said, like, he wouldn't let his employees use Apple phones at work if Apple implements AI into their.
They already did. They just released that. I don't know if you've seen that.
Have
I
you
heard
been
about
using
it.
Google? Every time you Google something now, it shows an AI summary of like all the Google prompts, and it's actually really helpful. But I was gonna ask though, does it make people lazy because now you're believing whatever it's telling you? It could have been a bunch of people that were because when you think about how much content the internet has that's just like trolling and dumb shit, like I see so many memes, deep fakes of like Jordan Peterson being like, I really felt it when Chief Keef said my chop a gay because I pulled it out the closet, and I thought that's hilarious. But now that's on the internet. And so now that's pulling that into that. So you have this prompt and you're like trying to be serious, but really it's just like some dumb shit that was a misquote.
Yeah. Speaking of Jordan Peterson, he was saying because I haven't messed around with ChatGPT too much, but what blew my mind is when he was talking about it, he fed a few of his writings to ChatGPT and said, write me an essay.
It will write it for you.
Using my voice.
Yes.
And he said it was undiscernible from his own writing. And it pumped it out in under 15 seconds or whatever.
I feel like it didn't take
Is
long
that
at all for AI to get there.
self-plagiarism?
It sounds like months.
I mean, this is a Pandora's box situation. That's the thing.
Yeah,
It's like it's not going the other way. This is like
no,
it's
well, there's a
yeah.
joke about kids are writing essays in college now, and so at first I think teachers were like, well, now I got to figure out if it's AI generated, but then the joke is teachers now are also grading with AI.
Well, I also think that the joke is that they used AI to know whether or not it was AI generated.
Yeah.
So they were running it through another program to see like the percentage of like what was this generated with
Fight
AI.
fire with fire.
when I first saw AI.
Yes, gosh, hit us.
Because it's already almost time to wrap this up.
No, we got like 20 minutes.
What do you mean? I told the wife I'd be back at 6:30.
Lies.
Well, I was told it started at 5:30.
Tell her AI made you do it.
You're not married, are you?
No.
Not that he knows of.
When I first saw AI, I was scrolling through Instagram looking at all this handmade artwork. And I scrolled across this one picture of like an arcade, like an old, cabinet arcade. And it was like in a overgrown, dilapidated building. It was like post-apocalyptic arcade setting. And I'm looking at this thing, and for some reason, as I scroll past, I go, this seems different than other art first. And I just like look at it more and more. And I'm noticing that there's swirling in the images, and when you're following the lines of the dimensions of each cabinet, they're not stopping. They're all morphing into each other, and it's all whippy, windy. And upon even further investigation, nothing in this image even represents what I thought it was upon initially looking at it, and all of it is abstract, like looking at a painting and you realize it's daubs. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, why is this so compelling? How is this person painting this? I've never seen anyone paint this way, like so abstractly, but then it's like vividly clear when I step like 2 steps out.
Right.
Like even in oil painting where you step and you see the brush strokes is not this.
Right.
And I go to his profile and I see 9 of these things and they're all different. I go, this is the most amazing artist in the world. I'm on every one of his posts, on his comments. How did you do this? Who are you? Why are you not the most famous painter in the world? Like all this shit. And then he finally responds and he's like, oh, it's like Dali, or like said something I didn't even understand at the time.
Right.
So I start feverishly investigating what the hell, like how do I get this, and I finally find something that's accessible because I'm pretty illiterate when it comes to like coding or any of this deep computer
for sure
language. And I find like an app called like Starry AI, and you're able to enter the prompts, and I start getting results, and it's like gobbledygook. It's all abstract weirdness, but it's like having that same sort of effect. And that was when I started, I was like right before my daughter was born. So it was like almost 2 years ago. And it was abstract swirls. Every character you would make had like eyes coming out of their forehead. It looked like nightmare fuel. And now in the span of a year and a half, this stuff is so crisp and almost indiscernible.
And it's only going to get clearer. Like right now, like
exponentially.
Exponentially. Like they've started writing screenplays. They've done storyboarding. They've done films. Like they've done a completely generated. It's like almost to the point where you can write the script. You can have AI write the script, storyboard it, shoot it, digitally animate it, and then render it, and then produce almost a near perfect short film. Like
Yeah.
it's getting to that level.
It'll be there soon.
It's getting to that level. So like to your point about actors, like do you want it like
That was
like,
half of the reason why they were all protesting, is because they were all freaking out about
well,
AI.
especially like script writers because they're just like, wait,
Like,
you could copywriting's out.
Fake, Scarlett Johansson or something, and it's like, well, now
now you have
Disney doesn't
Scarlett
even care.
Johansson like character.
Celebrities are selling their likeness to be made with AI
right.
in place of them, and I
Well,
mean,
of course, because they're going to be doing it anyway,
Yeah.
so you might as well make a buck
Because you
at
can
the
put a
forefront.
young Tom Cruise in a film thanks to AI, or you can.
I don't remember the last time I saw Harrison Ford not as an AI.
Augmented.
I think it's whenever he did
Exactly.
that
why are
one
we
where he was in
bringing
the
back
fridge.
Tupac?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the energy is worth spent protesting it, because it is so. When you understand the breadth of it and just kind of the magnitude of AI's implementation and the implications, it's a tidal. It's a
What do you think?
tsunami.
What do you think is the best? Well, all of you, like the best way to not fight it, integrate it, but like, what do you think is the most effective way to do that? Like, is it through government regulation? Is it
No.
through I'm just throwing things out there.
He said no more government. No.
Like, what is the way which it can like be controlled in a sense that's moving in a positive direction? Like, what is your guys' sense about that?
I would want to point it toward beautifying society. Like they have AI generated blueprints for how to beautify a city, like in the style of Florence or Paris or something like that, where you could re-engineer the whole architectural aesthetic of a city in a matter of months instead of years. So we could have, beautiful marble facades that would take marble workers, like I said, months and months and months to do something like that. I would want to just point it toward beautifying society, and like you guys mentioned earlier, don't let it, it can't take away human creativity, but point it toward menial tasks on one end to free up human beings to explore their creativity more, but then make sure that when we are using AI for creative tasks, make it our servant and don't lean on it and think it's the source of human ingenuity.
I think I love that. I think that that's excellent. I think having a relationship with it that is geared towards something positive as opposed to the way that it could turn. And I think the turning of that wheel, the gamble is getting past a crossroads where we can't come back from. Like giving it the keys to the car, so to speak. If we keep it from it driving and humans stay human-centric, I think we'll be in an okay place.
Yeah.
I think the reason why human interest will always matter is if humans are the ones dictating what matters. That's the whole Neo world of robots, world of machines. Is the fear of that is like, if we're just looked as an energy source.
I think we are actively living in the prequel to the Matrix. I think that
For sure.
it's coming, and there's no
But
stop, and
the
it's going to
question-
be that bleak.
The question is like, we're always like fearing the singularity, but what creates the singularity, right? Like how do we know that it can get to that point?
Because you can imagine it. If it exists within the human ability to conceive, I feel like we're on that.
And I think of the Borg inside.
There's a
Star Trek.
huge theological side to this that I always think about, but it's way too dense.
It'd have to be a part 2.
Yeah.
This
Do a
discussion.
part 2 on that.
Because I think ultimately,
So is God an AI?
Well,
no,
AI
he is the eye.
I mean, computers mirror the functioning of the human mind. It's just an externalization of what's already happening psychically, and AI is our externalization of consciousness. So the more we try to externalize our idea of consciousness or God, it's going to appear as a singularity. But I would much rather
Or can
AI
we
be
create
our
a God
servant.
higher than us? Because I think that's the whole fear of singularity. Like, we are its God.
So our lovely producer has used ChatGPT to ask a question of, I'm recording a podcast about AI. Can you write 3 prompting questions that you'd want asked about AI? And it responded, how do you see AI transforming industries and job roles over the next decade, and what skills will be most valuable in this new landscape?
Hey, we're on that number 3.
Question 2 is, what are the ethical considerations we must address as AI becomes more integrated into daily life, particularly in terms of privacy, bias, and decision making? And number 3, with the rapid advancements in AI, how do you envision the balance between human creativity and machine learning, especially in creative fields like art, writing, and music?
So what I want to stop on, and I guess I'll touch on this aspect because it's really the basis of how I think about it. Having recently become a father and having been a creative for my whole life, and kind of having this pun intended come to Jesus moment about like how much of my self-worth and stuff was tied up in art, and kind of divorcing myself from being tied up so much in like the pride of like the works I'm making or whatever, you know, like, which I think is where a lot of artists get fearful, is because they put so much of their effort and their self into things where they think that that's them.
Right.
And I get that. And I'm very empathetic to that, truly, because I've lived it. But having just become a father, what I realized is that that's not true creativity. It's creativity, but it is AI on a human scale. Like, you are taking in inspiration and reference from everything. You're only able to draw a 3D plane object or entity because you've seen it, or because you were imagining it from what you've seen and what you know. And that's nice, but that's a rendering. That's a puppet. That's a shadow. That's an expression. True creativity was when I had a child and was like, oh, I met somebody and I created something that has consciousness. And that's like in the AI discussion, that's what I think about all the time, because it's like, if the AI gets consciousness, that's when it becomes a real, like a creation. And that's where the fear is. And like, I think up until that point, it's just shadows, and it's just regurgitations, and it's iterations, and it's expression. But once it becomes consciousness is the thing that is creation, is creativity.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of where
I
I
feel the
landed on it.
same way, and that's well said. That's why I don't have fear around it.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And it's then
Not in its current implementation.
kind of, to me, the moral question from that angle is,
when it does get
like, is it wrong for humans to want to be able to create life, consciousness, in a way that's outside of natural means? AKA, you had a kid, which is a natural mean to do that.
Yeah.
That we know how, but now we're trying to play God at another level.
I think it is almost to the word, the playing out of the book of Revelation. I think it's the mark of the beast. I think it's when it gets to that point and it becomes so integrated in everyone's life every second, that it will be that entity that keeps you from selling or buying without accepting the
we just got to the juice and it's about to end.
I know.
I mean, AI will definitely become a Terminator if we create it without that human system of values and
But
virtues.
there's danger in that too, because you're just human beings are
What are they, Josh?
depraved.
What did you call me?
Depraved, Patrick.
You
especially.
I got rid of the Android. I have an iPhone now. I'm not that depraved.
Now
Say
you're
it.
relying on AI.
Say it.
You're
You're
fine
least-
for now, but then you're helping contribute to the AI devil now.
Ooh, you just turned it on me. Nice.
Yeah.
At least has blue buttons.
Nice.
All right, I got to go cook dinner for you all.
Josh Thorne, everybody.
Yeah, I love
you all Awesome. very Thanks much. For having you on, bro.
We want
I'll
to
be
have
back.
him back.
We'll talk about the Mark of the
Part
Beast
two.
part
Yeah,
two.
Mark
Yeah,
of the
everyone
Beast.
read the Revelations for next time.
Well, no, we're gonna read an AI rendering of Revelations.
Ooh.
ChatGPT, write a new Bible, please.
Ooh, beautiful, guys.
If written from the
Satan
stink.
himself comes out of the TV.
Thank you all for a very stimulating conversation and something that I was not super steeped in.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot to talk about with AI, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Just
requires a part 2, and we'll definitely have Joshua back on for many more of our casts.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks for having
Josh.
me. You guys know about what role AI plays in Dune, right?
Oh
No,
and Star Wars for that matter.
no.
Well,
Like in the story or
Yeah.
to create it?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, in the story.
but Larry and
The
Jihad, right?
reason that they all have like more archaic technology instead of lasers and robots and AI is Frank Herbert wrote that AI happened and then there was a human revolt against it, and that's why all this stuff is like.
that's what they said. That's what Max was saying about
Mhm.
machines specifically,
Yeah.
but not necessarily
and
AI.
why everyone's like spice using to travel the cosmos, and then
As a
George
human
Lucas
organism,
taking
yeah.
inspiration from Dune. Star Wars has that like patented look of worn
Old 80s tech.
old tech, and I don't know if it was a deliberate thing, but it's definitely inspired by Dune. So it's
Mhm.
like that stems again of an expression of
Yeah.
that idea.
And tying back
Spice they were selling at the gas station didn't really help me time
I
travel.
don't think you smoked it right.
It's not the water of life.
You gotta do
Chris.
the bath salts with the spice, dude.
Oh,
If
okay.
you really want to
Yeah.
get blue eyes on it, bro.
I don't know. Those homeless people in Colfax didn't really give me
Next
good advice.
episode
You
will
gotta
be
do it
a
with them
reaction.
in their van.
Chris taking spice at the gas
Down by the
station.
river.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Thanks for
Thanks.
listening, everybody.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers,
Fate
guys.
Boys out.
Shrimp orzo on the menu.